Hello and welcome to this midweek reflection. I hope you are doing well. I hope you had a great start to the week and I hope that you are blessed today. What I'm going to bring to you today is a very simple message, but I think it's one that we all need to hear, and I hope that it is some form of encouragement to you. As we are all aware by now, hopefully, that COVID-19 has been in our lives for over a year. So it's been over a year of these lockdowns, over a year of this pandemic. And no doubt we are all longing for that day when we hear that there are no more COVID cases, that we are allowed to go out, we're allowed to see people, we're allowed to go shopping, to hug and, dare I say it, even hold hands. And as we hear on the news, that hope of that future is slowly becoming a reality again, as we hear about the vaccines being distributed and cases slowly dropping. But as well as that hope of that future, we have the memories of the past year haunting us. They can plague our minds with fear, with pain, with hurt and doubt. So even though we are hoping for that future, we're still living in a time of uncertainty where we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, next week, or even next month. We're living in that time of uncertainty. But in this time, I want to encourage you to not forget how great and how awesome God is. This time, the time in the pandemic, reminds me of the story of Job, and I'm sure we are all familiar with it, where Job had an amazing life, had all these things. But slowly, one by one, he lost everything. And he was in this pit of gloom and despair. But in that time of loss, in Job's weakness, God spoke to him. And we read this really long conversation and quite a long monologue that God has, just reminding Job about how awesome he is, and about his authority and about his goodness. So I'm going to read an extract of that. I'm going to say extract of that. So in chapter 38 of Job, God says these words: "Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Tell me if you understand. Who marked off its dimensions? Surely you know. Who stretched a measuring line across it? On what were its footings set? Or who laid its cornerstone? While the morning stars sang together and all the angels shouted for joy? Who shut up the sea behind doors when it burst forth from the womb? When I made the clouds its garments and wrapped it in thick darkness? When I fixed limits for it and set its doors and bars in place? When I said, this far you may come and no further, here is where your proud waves halt." Often, fear, pain, and sadness can play tricks on our minds. We can often shrink God down and think that what we're going through is too big, it's too strong and powerful for God to handle. Or even that God has left us and He's not hearing our prayers. But just as God reminded Job, He also wants to remind us and encourage us to keep on going, because God is big enough and He is strong enough and good enough. Even if we don't understand what we're going through, we can trust in God's greatness and in His authority. Because the God who created the universe, He sees you, He hears you, and is for you. And often when we look back at our past hurts and things, we can doubt that goodness, we can doubt God's authority. But during this time, as we look forwards, we can't forget who God is. As well as we are fast approaching Mother's Day, I felt like it was suitable to look at one of the world's most famous mothers, the Virgin Mary. And after hearing the news about the baby Jesus, And after visiting Elizabeth, Mary sings a song. And I pray it will be a song that encourages you and echoes in your heart and gives you hope. But as well, I want you to remember that she is singing this song in a time where Israel has been waiting and hoping for this future king. But as well as having that hope of that future, she's living in a time of the Roman Empire. And so for the Jews, the future seemed very bleak. It has been a very hard time for the Jews. But amongst all that, Mary sings these words in Luke chapter 1, starting at verse 46. She says, "And Mary said, My soul glorifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God my Saviour. For he has been mindful of the humble state of his servant. From now on, all generations will call me blessed. For the Mighty One has done great things for me. Holy is his name. His mercy extends to those who fear him, from generation to generation. He has performed mighty deeds with his arm. He has scattered those who are proud in their innermost thoughts. He has brought down rulers from their thrones, but has lifted up the humble. He has filled the hungry with good things, but has sent the rich away empty. He has helped his servant Israel, remembering to be merciful to Abraham and his descendants forever, even as he said to our fathers." Even though she was in a time of desperation, even though she was in a time of darkness, she reminded herself of how good and how great God is. And I pray that you will also be reminded that even though we've been going through this hard time, that we don't forget who God is, the greatness, the authority and the love of God. And he sees you, he hears you, and is for you. And it could be easy for the world around you to consume you. And COVID-19 has taken its toll. But don't forget who God is, and how great and how awesome he is. Thank you guys. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you have a great rest of the week.